Hi guys, so I'm going to be talking about Windows 10. This has the most recent preview on it, which is build, I think it's 10.159. That was released yesterday, or the day before, forget. But I'm going to just boot it up real quick on here. This is a Sony VAIO Duo 11. I bought this thing about 2 years ago. If you ever seen my video where I did a review of the Sony VAIO laptop, you will see that actually a month after I made that review, I bought this. And it's a great tablet. I mean, you just pull it up and it's got a keyboard, full keyboard in it. And it's a beautiful laptop. I love it. I use this thing all the time. I watch Blu-ray movies and stuff on it with USB drives. And it's a great computer. The only flaw with it is the battery life isn't as good, and it is a little heavy compared to like a Surface Pro 3. But this thing is a fully decked out one, or almost fully decked out. It has 8 gigs of RAM, it has a 256 gigs solid state drive in it, and it has an i7. Not a quad-core i7, which they never made for something of this form factor, which it would have been awesome if they did that. Other than that, it is pretty powerful. I've used it for work. I used to work in a data center, and one of the greatest things it has is a hardwired connection. So I thought I had a connector lying around here, but apparently I don't. I was going to just show you how it plugs in. But yeah, it's great to have that. And I mean, the speakers are great. Cameras on here are terrible. But other than that, it's a good computer. But what I wanted to talk about with Microsoft and Windows 10, I wanted to give you guys my thoughts. Now, I've been using Windows 10 on this thing for close to a month now. I think when build, I forget which build it was I threw on here. It was definitely a month ago. But prior to that, I was using Windows 10 on a spare hard drive that I had lying around, this one to be exact, on my Sony VAIO 15-inch laptop. And it was okay. It was buggy as hell. I mean, that's what I expect, you know, when you're playing with a brand new operating system that's still in alpha. But it's a month away from release. This is essentially what you're going to get, you know, minus a few tweaks here and there. But I wanted to discuss my pros and cons with Windows 10. And the biggest complaint that I have with Windows 10 is something that Microsoft started with Windows 8. And it's not the start menu, it's not anything like that. It's Microsoft's, for some reason, they're trying to force their Microsoft accounts down everyone's throat. And what I mean by that is, yeah, you can have a Microsoft account on Windows 8, but they didn't really like kind of shove you into it like they're doing on Windows 10. Windows 10, I have encountered so many times where a dialog box will pop up because I want to do an update, or I want to change a setting, or I want to, you know, install apps from their app store. And Microsoft is very tricky the way that they write it. They try to force you to convert your local account to a Microsoft account. And the problem with that is it ties it to an online account. Apple doesn't even fucking do this, by the way. Yeah, they have your Apple ID, but your Apple ID is only used to purchase stuff. You know, it's only used to synchronize a few things, but it's never your login. And with Microsoft, they're just taking that one step further, but the way they're doing it is they're trying to default everybody to it. So when you buy a Windows 10 computer, I can almost guarantee you're going to run into this trick. You're going to run into Microsoft trying to force you to use a Microsoft account. And, you know, for an enterprise environment, that's just unacceptable. Luckily, it asks you when you first install Windows 10, it asks you who owns the computer. Is it your organization or is it just you? And I'm not too sure what the organization option is. I'm hoping that the organization option kind of just changes the default over to local accounts. But with the way that I've set them up so far, they constantly try to get you. And the way you have to bypass it is kind of convoluted. You have to go to create an account, and then there's an option that says sign in with a local account instead. So the option's not even clearly in plain view like it used to be. With Windows 8, I mean 8.1 is really where Microsoft just started to kind of shove them down your throat, but at least they didn't, you know, it would ask you once, and then anytime you signed into an application, it would ask you again, but the default was always just sign in with your ID, but keep the account separate. Here, if you want to use Cortana, you have to use a Microsoft account as your login account. I don't mind using a Microsoft account if it's per app's, basis. I don't want my Microsoft account to be my login, because if my online account gets compromised, that's going to cause problems with this. Someone could remotely delete this computer if I'm using a Microsoft account. And also, Microsoft kind of puts a backdoor into it. There's nothing stopping Microsoft from logging into your machine if you're using a Microsoft account. Now, yeah, of course that this is probably never going to happen, but that possibility is there, where if you're using a local account, there is no backdoor that Microsoft can just fucking use. You're kind of secure in that way. But nothing stops a rogue Microsoft employee from just going onto their online account system, resetting your password, and then logging into your machine. And the other thing is, like, if you lose access to your internet, how long until the password expires? There are times where I can go a month without putting this thing online because I'm like on vacation, or I'm in a rural area with no internet. And there's just a lot of negatives that come along with using a Microsoft account as your primary login. The other biggest issue with Windows 10 is the death of control panel, and it's not even a clear death. It's kind of like, the control panel is like a zombie application now. It doesn't have half of the settings that it used to have. They removed Windows updates, they removed the display settings, they removed a lot of things that used to be in there, and they put it into this metrofied version. So their metro version is this, and I'll hopefully you guys can see it. So they changed it to this like metro thing, but yeah, the control panel still exists, but everything you do goes through this. So if you want to change your wallpaper, it goes through this application. You want to update your computer, it goes through this application. They're updating, which I'm not sure if they're going to change it when it's an official build, but currently, when you check for updates, it automatically installs shit. And if you go into the settings here, it doesn't give you an option to change it. By the way, one of the ways that Microsoft tries to fuck you is if you click Fix Me. Sign in with a Microsoft account is what it asks you. But it's not clear in saying, hey, if you sign in with a Microsoft account, we're going to switch you to one. And it's so stupid. I don't understand why Microsoft wants and insists that we have this. And then putting features behind that is kind of fucked up. Because if someone like myself doesn't want to use a Microsoft account to log in, I can't use Cortana. So there's a lot of these features that Microsoft's like, hey, you guys got to do this. This is the best. It's just a lot of things that they just really fucked up. The Metro apps on here run so much better than Windows 8.1. I love the fact that seamlessly you can switch them between full screen view, side by side, or you could just keep them in a window, which you can customly expand them. Currently, the App Store is buggy. They had two versions for a while. They had a beta version, which never worked, and they had the original Windows 8.1 version. With this build, they removed the Windows 8.1 version, so now I can't install Metro apps anymore. Hopefully, they fix that before release. I don't know. They also changed they changed the calendar and all the little settings that used to be here. So if you look at battery mode, I know this is not the clearest picture. I would love to eventually do a good demonstration. I'll probably do that. I have my tripod mount again, which, yes, I finally have my tripod. And that way I can finally do some more videos and stuff. I can show you guys off some things and really get this channel back to where it was. But besides that point, so yeah, they changed everything. Everything has more Metro theming to it. And my biggest grief with the Metro is they still insist on not adding transparency to the windows. They instead they basically take the Windows 8 interface and just take all the color out. So all the windows are just white. That's it. And to me, it's just ugly. I just don't understand why Microsoft won't bring back Aero Glass. I mean, yeah, Aero is still a core, foundation for everything you see on your screen. I mean, there's so much that Aero offers that Microsoft just couldn't rip that out. I mean, they would be taking a step back. But for those that don't know, Aero is not just the glass effects. Aero was actually a graphical platform that Microsoft used to draw and render everything on the GPU. Back in the Windows XP days, everything that was 2D was rendered on your CPU. Even in Windows Vista and 7, a lot of 2D elements were still rendered by your CPU. In Windows 8 is when Microsoft finally completely made an overhaul, and so that way everything you saw on your screen was being fully rendered by the GPU instead of this kind of hybrid cross thing. So that's why when you're using Windows 7, if you switch it to Windows Basic or the Classic, if you drag windows around, you'll notice that the contents don't stay within the window. They actually kind of like jitter all over the place. With Aero, again, something that Mac OS X had since version 10.0. They've had what Microsoft eventually released as Windows Aero. But Apple does it in OpenGL, whereas Microsoft does it in DirectX. Now, that's supposedly one of the biggest pros to having Windows 10, and I've been testing this out, is graphics performance. What I'm planning on doing, hopefully soon, I have a lot of free time. My rig, which has a GTX 690. Yes, I know that card needs to be upgraded soon. It has a i7 3770K. It's got 24 gigs of RAM. It's got 4 hard drives in it. It's a pretty beefy machine. I was thinking of doing, once Windows 10 is fully released, I was thinking of doing a performance test between Windows 8.1 and Windows 10, RTM. And what I want to test is, they claim that DirectX 12 wouldn't require much of a change on any of the games. So I'm not sure if game studios and publishers will have to release an update to their games to fully utilize DirectX 12. But one of the core functionality of DirectX 12 is the fact that it reduces a lot of the overhead that used to be on the CPU. So they claim that performance is going to get a nice nifty boost. It's similar to Apple's Metal and AMD's Mantle. So, I mean, personally, I haven't noticed much of any performance difference, but then again, when I play games, I do VSync, so I cap out all my games at 60 frames a second. If I had a higher hertz display, of course, that would be different, but there's no sense in dealing with screen tearing and all that shit. For me, I just don't want to see it. So why make my graphics card run more, use more power than it has to? So what I could do potentially is run all these tests with VSync off and come up with a good number for it. And I'm sure other publications are going to do this. They're going to say, hey, there is a performance boost if you use Windows 10. Personally, I have yet to see it. I feel that Windows 10 runs just as fast as Windows 8.1. So if you're talking about general usability, and again, I'm running them on solid-state drives, your mileage will vary. Windows 10 is the same, Will I think there's going to be a huge learning curve? Yes and no. If you don't bypass the whole Microsoft account thing, I think there's going to be a huge learning curve. If you're used to managing Windows computers, there's going to be a huge learning curve, but general usability, it's kind of the same as Windows 8.1. The start menu, believe it or not, is just a miniature version of the start screen. It's not the same as Windows 7. It's not the same as Windows Vista. So if you're upgrading to Windows 10 expecting, the good old start menu, it's not there. I think the way that they have the applications listed is kind of stupid. Back in the day, Microsoft used to do it where it had folders first and then applications, or vice versa, I forget. It was one or the other. Now they do it alphabetical. So it's kind of this mixed thing. So Metro apps are mixed with the desktop apps that you're installing in the folders and everything. It just looks like a complete fuck up. It's very similar to Windows Phone. So if you use Windows Phone and you slide to the right and you like go through that list, it's very similar to that. But trying to use that for a desktop just doesn't make sense. So the way they do it, and I'll try my best to show you, but the way they do it, as you can see, is, there we go. They do it through this. Again, I'm so sorry it's not the clearest thing, but as you see, they're just mixing Metro apps with Windows full version apps, and they do it in this alphabetical order thing. And honestly, I don't really like it. I'm sure you can install an application like Stardate. I used to use that a lot for my Windows Server 2012 installations, because why the fuck Microsoft put the Metro interface on a server OS is completely beyond me. But yeah, I think it's a good operating system. I just don't think it's going to live up to the hype. I really don't. Am I going to use it? Of course. Am I finding a hard time using it? Yes and no. I mean, I'm pretty good at learning a new operating system. I tell you, when I first started playing with Windows 8, I was a little concerned. It really bothered me trying to switch from the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things. But they didn't go as extensive in terms of replacing functionality. I really don't understand why they had to metrofy this control panel. And you know, back in the, in the Windows 8 days, it wasn't a problem because you could still do everything you could do in prior releases in the control panel. Here, they blatantly are ripping features out of the control panel and switching it over to this Metro thing. So it is going to take you a while to learn where things are, where Microsoft threw things. Even personalization options, totally different. When I try to add my computer or my user profile and the control panel to my desktop, they completely changed the way that that's done. So it's hidden and it's not as obvious as it used to be. And this is going to be a hard thing for professionals who've been using Windows since, the 95 days. A lot of these settings haven't been changed until now. So a lot of settings, up until Windows 8.1 have been carried over from Windows 95. Even the fucking pie chart that they used for checking your hard drive space, they changed it. So now this is the way it looks. It's a circle. So they removed the pie chart, as you can see. So yeah. I think this is going to basically cover it up. I mean, if there's something specifically you guys want me to demonstrate, as I said, I'll set up my tripod and I'll do it in a way so that way it's crystal clear. But, I really think, I don't know, it's a mixed bag for me. I mean, I've already converted all of my machines over except for one laptop. I've converted my rig over to Windows 10 because it is stable enough to use. But I don't know. I keep finding myself wanting to go back to Windows 8.1 strictly because of how much Microsoft is trying to shove that Microsoft account down your throat. I just don't understand. And I filled out that fucking feedback app. I mean, I filled it out since the very first technical preview because I noticed that they were doing it even then. And I went ahead and wrote detailed things saying, hey, don't do this. You got to give people that option like you did in Windows 8. And here it's just, if you're a PC repair technician and you have customers, home-based customers bringing in their machines for repair, be prepared. I can almost guarantee you they're going to be using Microsoft accounts the way it is laid out. The way Microsoft pulls you through the setup screen, I would say 9 out of 10 Windows 10 owners are going to be using a Microsoft account because of the way Microsoft is implementing it. It's not clear and concise. They don't explain what they're doing. And I'm sure there's going to be people out there like, oh, Microsoft accounts are okay, no big deal. But for me, I just, as a power user, I don't like that. I like to have absolute control over my machine, and Microsoft's taking that away from me. So that's a problem. So take care, guys. Look out for future content. Let me know what you guys want to see. I mean, I'll do more videos in tech. I love technology. I love technology far more than I love gaming. But I think this channel is going to get better.